I've got a twofold job today. I'm going to try and give you some tips right from now about making sure you get the most from your study, so adjusting to UK study. And I'm also going to tell you where to go for help, who gives you support and how we give support at Whitechapel for your writing. You're all postgrads, right? Yes. Yeah. And I've been told we've got global health students? Great, okay. You've got some special advice coming. And where's our dentists? Okay, brilliant. You also have some special advice. And the rest, we've got regenerative medicine. Okay, well, we'll teach you to self-study nicely. And I can't even say it, gastroenterologists. Okay, well, you're sitting together again, study skills, teamwork, fantastic. And then is the rest biomedical, is that right? Biomedical science. Okay, brilliant. So are you here for 1 year or longer? 1 year, right, okay. Now think about it. Are you really literally studying for 1 year? No, because you're starting now and you'll be finished by June. So the purpose of this is to try and make sure that you know what tutors expect of you. You know what they when they're asking for you to write, what the kind of writing that they want to see. And then also, again, like when you are doing your writing, you're not alone. So we're going to talk about this thing that as a master's student, you're meant to be independent. But at the same time, you are independent, but there is help there and you should use it. Right, because you paid your course fees, and within that course fees, you got lots of help. Okay. So, these are the things we're going to talk. This is the bit of the crossover. So, sorry, crossover students. We're thinking about independent study. So, making sure you know what the tutors imagine they're going to get from you and what you should be doing in your spare time. Thinking about knowledge and criticality. Now, some of this is crossover from Monday, Tuesday. Some of it's new. The preparing for lectures and seminars, I'll do very briefly. I want to talk about your role. And I've called it your role in the academic conversation. Because if you sort of think about it as that you've come to whatever your subject is, you've come here, the stuff that you're reading, the lectures that you're getting, you're in the middle of an academic conversation. So, for example, with global health, you've got certain issues that everyone's discussing, certain experts that are asking particular questions. You need to know what are the big questions in my discipline, what are the answers that people are putting forward, and then where do I stand in all of this? Because am I right, are you all going to write a research paper for a dissertation? Yes. Everyone has to do that. Is anyone here from a medical background? Quite a lot of you. Did you have to write extended essays in the past? Some of you, yes, and most of you, no. So this is something you've really got to think about now. Don't wait until after Easter to start thinking about your academic writing. You want to start now, because you've got to remember that writing, it's not a talent that you're born with. It's a skill. And it's a bit like going to the gym, you know, if you go every day, you'll get fitter and fitter and fitter. So if you write all the time, you'll get better and better and better. So that's kind of part of my big urgent message today. Writing, especially if your first language isn't English, taking notes in English, writing in English as much as you can. And even when your first language is English, if you're from a different country, there's a possibility that our style might be a bit different. I'll talk a bit about the style. And you can ask questions and stuff at the end. Okay, I'm talking quickly, sorry about that, but we've got lots to get through. Okay, oh right, so I just see if this is set up. I thought it would be nice for you to listen to a student, some master's students talking to you about what they found about independent study. So, people who came to my lecture on Monday, Tuesday, on the Queen Mary website, we've got 12 different videos talking about master's students who came to the UK, talking about the problems that they found when they came, the brick walls that they came across, and then what they did to get over these things. So I wanted to just, I'm going to leave him on for a minute. There's a couple of students talking about what they found about course content, structure and independent study. I'm going to cross my fingers that the volume's okay. Right, the volume isn't okay. Maybe we're our technical. The thing is, they've all got transcripts anyway.
In Russia, you have classes every day.
It's not loud enough, is it?
Timetable, but that means that you.
Okay, I'll tell you what. It's not going to be loud enough. All right. All of these videos have got a transcript there. Okay. Now, ultimately, what these students are saying is quite often in their country, when they have a master's, it's very much a taught program. There's every day you've got lessons, you've got lectures, you've got tests, so the tutors are there with you. Basically, they're teaching you the course. And what you find with a master's over here is that's not usually the case. You are managing yourself. So you have to go to the lectures, you go to the seminars, but there's an awful lot of time you're spending on your own, working on your own. And so this can be a little bit lonely, and it can also be a little bit scary because you think, well, what am I supposed to be doing? So can you help me get my thing back on?
Sure.
My technical prowess is very limited. Thank you. Okay. Okay, but what those students talk about was the fact that when they came, they felt that that they weren't being directed enough in their studies. But what they found was if they kept asking the tutors, what have I got to do, talking to other students, being very rigorous with themselves and setting their own study routine, that was the way that they were going to pass this master's and do well. So that's their advice to you. Those videos, I can give you the website link at the end. So these are some of the things that the students talk about and some of the things that you might notice. Your timetable might be shorter. Have you got your timetables now? No. No, some of you yes, some of you no. Has anyone got more than 12 hours of study? No. I think with global health you have about 10 or 12 hours. So remember that it's a full-time course, and that actually in other countries masters takes 2 years, doesn't it, or 3 years sometimes. So it's not that this masters is easy, it's that you're cramming all that into 1 year. So the less time you've got in classes, the more time you're expected to sit and study on your own. So you might have a shorter taught timetable. You're going to have to get yourself a long study timetable. Make yourself a study timetable. Okay, you're going to have a reading list, a long reading list possibly. You're going to be doing quite a lot of extended writing, and as I said, your tutor isn't necessarily going to teach you. They're going to expect you to teach yourself to an extent. Let's see what we mean by this. I think this is the last slide that's the same as Tuesdays and Mondays. Okay. To be a successful independent student, you need to be organised. Now, the people who came to the talk on Monday or Tuesday, I said you should get a study diary or some kind of wall poster and put all your deadlines in. Have you done it? Some of you, okay. I would suggest to all of you, if you're on a course that has regular tests, it's a really important thing to see when all your deadlines are. And for example, with global health students, you have an awful lot of essays to write, and the deadlines will often be the same at the same week or the same day. So you need to know, when are these essays due? When should I start writing them? Have I got enough time to rewrite them? Yes, I have. I must rewrite them. And planning that with your deadlines. I mentioned this again before. With your reading list, always obviously do the essential reading first. If you've got a long list of further reading, that does not mean you are expected to do it all. It means here is everything on the topic that we are talking about. So you need to use your discretion in that. Always do the core readings, and then you look at the further reading and think, maybe if the core readings were difficult, I should do some background reading here. I don't really understand the big picture. Maybe it's week 7, you do understand the big picture. I want more detail. I love this subject so much. I want more. So then look through your reading list. Remember, they're alphabetical, so they are not in list of importance. And then you need to be the one who's choosing what would be useful for me. this might be pretty obvious to you, but do not expect to learn without reading. Do not go to lectures without doing the reading. Never go to a seminar without being prepared. The idea is that the lectures and the seminars are not to teach you. You've taught yourself by doing the reading, and they are to clarify things which were difficult. They are to exemplify ideas and notions that you've been reading about. They are to talk about very current research. So they're to sort of bring you further, the lectures and the seminars. The seminars are very much there to help you review and to discuss the points that you've been reading. So obviously the more you've read, the better. But this is a good place for you to say, well, actually, I didn't understand that reading. So you can always say that in the seminars. So as I've said before, as an independent student, it's quite easy in a UK university to sort of hide your head and walk away and not let the tutor know who you are, because they don't say, I want to see you tomorrow. So you could just go, okay, I'm not going to see them. But remember, the more you talk to a tutor, the more input you get, probably the better your output's going to be. So do ask your tutor things. If you do have an essay or when you've got your dissertation, of course you have appointments with your tutors, but try and see them more. They have office hours, they have drop-in hours. So use their drop-in hours, go and see them and say, you know what, you were talking about this lecture today. Well, I didn't really understand. And try and use them as much as you can. Try to think of them as well. Don't think of them as being like above you, as some kind of god of knowledge. They are meant to be your equal. You are their equal as a postgrad. You have to call them by their first names, don't you? Not their surnames. And you and the tutor, you are in pursuit of knowledge together. When you do your research projects, your dissertations, you will be reading things those tutors haven't read. You'll be going in directions that they haven't gone in, and they will be very interested in what you've got to say, as well as you being interested in what they've got to say. So try and think of it like that. Don't think of this power relation of them being above you, and try and open the conversation out with them. Okay. So very quickly, within science disciplines, obviously you need to know a certain amount, you need to learn a certain amount, don't you? I need to know what this part of the body is, I need to know how it works, I need to know exactly the pathology involved. So there'll be a lot of stuff that you need to just know. But as a master's student, you are not expected to just learn and churn, to just know and reproduce. You're expected to learn and know and use that knowledge and build on that knowledge. In terms of medicine, there will be, for example, if there's a paper about a particular type of prevention in a certain illness, your job isn't just to go, oh, well, that's a good paper. They talk about this prevention. Your job is to be a critical reader. So you need to be, when you're reading papers like that, you need to be analysing them. Where's the study coming from? How many people were involved? What do other people say about this? How conclusive is their conclusion? Does that tally with other things? So the word criticality will keep coming back again and again, and we're going to come back to it in a minute as well. But basically the heart of criticality is questioning. What is this? Why are they saying this? What do I need to know now? Questions, questions, questions. Criticality doesn't mean disagreeing necessarily, remember. It doesn't mean go, no, that's wrong, that's stupid. In general English, to be critical is to be negative. But in academic English, to be critical is basically just to be a little bit Sherlock Holmes and have a magnifying glass, go, ooh, that's interesting. Why do they say that? And this is your role. Okay, so it's a different picture of the triangle for the people who came on Tuesday. I'm going to go through this again. The idea of the expectation, the cognitive expectations on you, the way you are expected to think as a master's student. Well, at the bottom is the most basic ways of thinking. At the top, we've got the more advanced ways of thinking, the more critical ways of thinking. All of them are very important in order to do well in your course. First of all, you need knowledge. So you need to read your stuff and go to the lectures. Then you need comprehension. You need to be able to show that you understand it. So that will be in the seminars when you're discussing these issues, and it will be when you're writing, if you're paraphrasing or summarising ideas. This is showing your comprehension. That's not enough. You need to be able to apply ideas. So as medics, as biochemists, you need to know which theories should I use, which ideas should I use where, and know what's appropriate, basically. When you're dealing with ideas and arguments and things which people disagree with, you can't just apply ideas. You need to analyse them first. So you need to always, when you're doing your reading, you need to be thinking, what is this writer saying to me? What point are they making? Where's their evidence? Where's their premises? What do I think of those premises? How strong are they? Do they tally with what other people have said? Why not? You will probably, it's very interesting when you come from a different country and study in another country, because sometimes stuff that is taken as for granted here, you would say, that would never be true in my country. That piece of research might be really great here in the UK with your people, but it would never be true with mine. So this kind of thing is part of analysis and criticality, and very, very welcomed, because the idea of this kind of international community, and it's great for the tutors here because they get the big world picture, obviously particularly in global health, but I would say in all the disciplines. Synthesis is being able to, okay, so you've analysed a paper, then you've got other papers, you've got books, you've got what this tutor's saying and that tutor's saying, you've got different modules, and the way that modules are organised, obviously knowledge is not modular. They give you modules to help you, understand. But synthesis is being able to put all this stuff together and being able to see the connections and understand the big picture. And then when you're doing your academic writing, when you're doing your research papers, knowing what to include and what to drop. And if people are saying the same thing, I don't need to say everything, do I? I don't need to use everything everyone's saying. So synthesis would be you being able to pick out what's important, notice connections and notice patterns, and that kind of thing. And then evaluation is your judgment. This is right. It's brilliant. It's excellent. This is terrible. It's old-fashioned. It's Anglo-centric. This is, so making these judgments, it's hard to make judgments in your first week because the knowledge is new. But as you get more confident and as you have more lectures and as you do more reading, you'll start to be able to say, you'll start noticing which writers you agree with more and which ones you think, oh, not them again. And, so evaluation is key. And within your writing, your evaluation is your judgment. So within your research paper, whatever your discipline is, you're going to be telling us something as a reader, and you'll be explaining where it came from, and that's showing your evaluation. At the very, very top past evaluation is creation, which is your writing, your actual paper itself. And you cannot write a good paper until you've read everything you needed to read, and understood it all and thought about it carefully, noticed connections and been able to say what's good and what's bad. Okay, so these are all the steps necessary. There's loads of stuff online about critical thinking and critical writing. I've got a book on critical thinking, Introduction, but it's aimed at undergrads, not postgrads. But it's for a basic look at what's involved in criticality, it's quite useful. But there's loads of stuff online anyway. This is the kind of thing you might see in academic English websites. Noticing that certain words exemplify certain types of thinking. So, as a medic, you've got loads of information coming at you and quite a lot of questions being thrown at you as well. And sometimes when you're using certain words like recall, the question's quite simple, I just need to remember. But if they're going to use a question like design, that's a really big question. That's involving so much more. So thinking what word goes with which kind of type of thinking is interesting. You've got to be a little bit careful because, for example, within this thing here, they've got the word discuss in here. In actual fact, I would put discuss here, and most websites would, because to discuss is to show criticality. To discuss is to say, I've looked at the issue, I've looked at all sides of the issue, I've thought about it, I've worked this thing out, and now I can give you a good point of view, a good argument. Okay, and that's just, I just wanted to show you this picture because I love this picture. This is you at the very top. You are standing on the shoulders of everything you've read. So remembering when you are doing writing and when you are in seminars and you are, if the tutor says, what do you think? They don't really mean what do you think out of your head, full stop. They mean what do you think based on your on the reading that you've done? And what do you think based on the lectures that you've done? So just remembering, in order to create really great knowledge, everything's going to be based on what you've read or what you've heard. And then these are, I always think of those people at the bottom as the kind of key seminal writers in your discipline. And then you've got journal articles which will deal with details or give examples or talk about clinical practice and what went right and what wrong. And then you're using all of that in order to create whatever it is you want to say. That's you standing on the top anyway. Okay. This is a bit, I'll do this very quickly because I know some of you did it before. Just reminding you to read as much as you can before those lectures and seminars because you can't create until you've done the reading. Always think in terms of questions. So whenever you're doing your reading or whenever you're sitting in a lab doing anything, just always, what is this? Why is this? How is this? The more questions you've got, the more, first of all, the more your brain is active when you're in your lectures, but second of all, the more you're going to retain and remember. So try and think in terms of questions. Take notes as much as you can. And remember that it's not a competition, okay? Like every single person in this room can get a distinction if their level is good enough. So it's a really good idea to talk to other students. Don't compete with them, discuss things with them. There's a lot of research that shows that students who talk about ideas before they start writing, write better ideas. So verbalizing before you write is really useful. So if you can get in the habit every time you come out of a lecture to talk about the lecture and what's gone on in it, that would be a really, really valuable, useful thing for you. Okay. Right. Yes, the questioning thing, we're going to come back to that in a moment. Questioning comes, if you're from Europe or Middle East as well, we've got this, our ways of thinking, our ways of learning go right back to Socrates. Is anyone Greek? Oh, there you go. Look, so you would be the expert on Socratic thinking. Socrates never answered anything. He just came out with another question, or he tried to direct his students to ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. So remembering that your tutors, they just assume you're going to think like that. They assume you're going to be asking questions. And if you don't, they're actually going to be quite a bit sad and unhappy. When there's silence, and no one asks any questions, they'll be quite unhappy. If you're from a country, maybe China or the Middle East, you might have learned in a more like a Confucian way of thinking, which is like you listen and you listen and you listen and then you master it. I mean, it's another great way of learning, but just remembering that your tutors don't wait until you understand everything before you ask questions. We believe here, they believe that you're going to learn through asking questions. So trying to get into that habit. Some of your tutors will have discussion forums on QM+. Do engage in them. They're there again because, I'm saying that thinking aloud, talking about your studies helps you learn. And also writing, just short bursts of writing really help with your writing, but also with your thinking and with your clarification of ideas. And reading what other students are saying can be great as well, because it can make you feel a lot better, because you think, oh God, they said that and I think that as well. Sometimes if you're stuck, you can just go, oh, right, that's all it is. You know, so use the Blackboard discussions. When I say Blackboard, I mean QM+, sorry. Okay. Now I'm going to come to your role. So that's an academic party. Have you had any parties with your tutors yet? Did you have a lunch today? Yeah. Many tutors there? No? Oh. Right, okay. So the next time you're at anything with the tutors, all your tutors, obviously, they've been within your discipline for years and years and years, and they've read loads and loads of papers. So they're experts in their field. And you're a novice, maybe, at the moment. Some of you maybe not, but you might be like new this might be a new subject for you, or maybe you know enough, but you don't know that much. Just try to imagine that you're kind of, in terms for your writing and your thinking, you're at a party and you're listening to the kind of main speakers at that party, what the big, the important people are saying. And you go, oh, they're saying that and they're saying that, okay. And then you're listening to what other little groups, that group doesn't like that group. Why don't they like that group? And you're listening in and you're listening in. And then, once you start getting a feel for what your discipline is saying, then it can be time for you to enter into that conversation and say, this is what I think. When you're doing your academic writing, one of the best ways to think, because you have to use your sources a lot in your writing. And one of the biggest complaints that the tutors have is that student writing's too descriptive. And when they say it's too descriptive, what they mean is, you're just telling me what everyone said. And as a student, you might think, oh, isn't that my job to tell you that I understand what I've read? But your job actually is to understand what they've read, think about what they've read, and use what they've read to say something. That's the critical voice again, the unique critical voice. So when you are thinking about sources and you're using them, always think, well, this is what they say. What do I think? And what you think might just be, great, that's great, but that's good. But just making sure you're always, everything you read, think, do I agree with it? Do I have questions from it? Do I align myself with it? And that will keep you as a critical thinker. You can't really see that slide, can you? In fact, you can't see it at all. That's awful. Sorry, it says questions, questions, questions. And what we've got there are different types of questions. So these are sort of clarification ones. Can you elaborate on that? Can you give me an example? Can you be more specific? These are really important questions that you need to ask. It never means you don't understand. It just means that I'm demanding. I want more. I want more. This might be questions like, how do I apply it to my life? How do I, how does it support the theme that we're doing? What else have we got? How can we summarize the discussion? How can we all agree on this? If they're saying that and they're saying that, is there any bridge? Remembering again, as an academic, you don't want to be polarized, and you've got to listen to all parts of that conversation. And even if you know that you're on one side of the fence, it's very important to listen to that other side, and very important to try and empathize. So if somebody's saying something you really don't agree with, but your tutor's asked you to read that paper, they've asked you to read it for a reason. And so there's this one, I don't know how well it works for all students, but one technique for that is to, if you are asked to read something and you just think, I'm not going to agree with this, it's written by Donald Trump, I'm not going to agree with it. I don't think you can write, so that's not going to happen. But anyway, a technique is to just think, okay, I'm going to imagine I am this author, and I'm going to imagine that I agree with everything they're saying. And reading like that can stop blindness. So if you try to read with empathy, it doesn't mean you're going to agree with them when you finish, but it might mean that you start understanding where they're coming from. And in a subject like global health, this is really important, because if everyone just stands around going, I don't agree with you, I don't agree with you, we can't get those connections and that bridge. So questions, 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 and empathy, empathy, empathy. Right. Okay, I'm full of threes, aren't I? Okay. As I said before, when it's just so quick. These courses are just boom, 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 out. So you need to know that you're confident with your academic writing. Now, when I teach, I'll talk about the global health students in a moment, but when we do our in-sessional classes, we don't just have international students, we have home students as well. So if any of you have been out of education for a long time and you haven't written anything academically for a long time, you know, you really got to hone this and you've got to practice. People who, first language isn't English, you might be worried about your writing. So make sure that I wanted to get my pictures up. Make sure that you write as much as you can. Don't worry if your writing's a great big mess, okay? So remembering that obviously you're not going to ever hand that into a tutor. But a lot of students feel they don't want to write anything down because they're worried their writing's not good enough. And just remember that your first bit of writing is for you, not for anybody else. So try and get in the habit of getting stuff down. And remember, that's like a picture of our brains. Often, you know, what's in our head's a bit of a mess. But once you write it down, you can start ordering it and you can start using what you've written to, come on, picture. There we go. You can start using what you've written to make a draft. You can start drafting and thinking. Now, writing is rewriting. Anyone who thinks, right, okay, I've got to write a paper, it's due in 3 weeks' time, that means I've got 2 weeks for reading, 2 days for planning, then I'm going to write it. No. You need to be thinking about the writing all the time. So when you're doing your reading, you should be doing your planning and thinking about your planning. There'll be certain sections of that piece of writing that you can probably write quite early on, and you should start those sections. Never leave it at the last minute to do your writing, because good students write 2 or 3 or 4 drafts. So you need to, be really hard on yourself and think, is that good enough? Is that good enough? There you are. That'll be you at the end, if you're a guy, not if you're a girl. But anyway, the A+, that's a student who is rewriting. And I've noticed this so much. And another thing, actually, that I've noticed as well is sometimes international students, because they lack confidence in their writing, they start later than the home students. Now, just try and start as soon as you can. Give those home students a run for their money. Yes, giving it enough time means that also you could show it to another student. And remembering, okay, obviously your audience is your tutor, but having more eyes on your writing is going to lead to better writing. It's going to lead to clearer writing. And so that if you've got your writing or a draft finished fairly early, it means you can show somebody. And I think, you're never going to write these things together, but showing somebody and saying, can you just read that? Does that make sense to you? And they'll be able to pick things out for you, and you do the same for them. It can be really, really helpful. Okay, something on clarity of writing. Especially master's students, for some reason, when they start writing these really long, complicated 5,000-word sentences. What's that? And like 2.5-page paragraph. The best writers are clear. And the best writers, they will be writing about complex ideas, but if you can write a complex idea in a way that is clear and accessible for anyone to read, that is good writing, okay? So, I mean, when I say short, familiar words, okay, if the word's familiar and it's long and you know it and it's part of your repertoire, use it. But don't start doing that thing where you think, well, I want to use the word study, but it's only 5 letters, so I'm going to go on my thesaurus and find this word of, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't impress anybody. Avoid jargon, avoid acronyms. All of you, when I should be able to read, I'm not a medic, but I should be able to read your papers and follow them. With the medics, I wouldn't be able to follow the science in it, but I'd be able to follow the argument and the gist of what you're saying. And if I can't follow that, that means your writing's not clear enough. If you are using acronyms, which is, things like SOS instead of SOS, you always tell the reader first, give the full words, and then in brackets use the acronym, and then you can use the acronym after. Always think, your job is to make the reading as easy as possible for that reader. So the more difficult it is for them, the more they have to read it 4 times to go, that means you haven't done your job. That means you should have done another draft to make it clear for the reader. Which is why I think when I'm writing, the first draft is my ideas, and the second draft is my organisation, and then the next draft is my voice and my making sure that my language is good, and then a final draft for that, the beauty of the language and the polish. Be specific. That's just meaning don't use vague words. Be concrete, so give examples when you can. Again, that's all to help the reader say what you mean and mean what you say. I didn't write that bit. Okay. I thought that these might be quite nice. This guy, Steven Pinker, is a cognitive psychologist, and he wrote a book called on academic writing, and he accuses not students, he accuses academics of fuzzy, ugly, foggy writing, basically. And he says a good academic should be clear. So we want to use his advice. Fog comes easily to writers. We saw that first draft was a mess. It's the clarity that requires practice. The naive realism and breezy conversation in classic style are deceptive, an artifice constructed through effort and skill. Basically, when you read something and it's reading very clearly for you and you're following the ideas and you're thinking, but this is really simple. That was not simple. That writer took much longer writing that than the writer who goes blah, 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 blah. You know, so it's just remembering clarity is everything. I've got another one as well. Writing is because I keep hearing that everything's algorithmic these days. And there's an exam, there's a language exam that isn't marked by humans anymore. It's marked by algorithms. And I think, This is another academic from Columbia. Just about every sentence I write, I need to reconfigure for the purpose of increasing clarity. And I'm definitely the same. It's very rare that I've written a sentence and I go, great, and I move to the next one. Just read your own sentences and think, okay, that's my subject. Is that clear? Where's my verb? Are they together? Because the further away your verb is from your subject, the more difficult it is for the reader. So certain things like that are going to be important for you. So I hope I haven't scared you all, because now I'm going to tell you that there's help. We have INSESSIONAL classes. Some of you went to the Simer's talk or Alan's talk on INSESSIONAL help? Yeah? Okay, for this university we have classes that you can enroll on to help you with your reading and writing, to help you with listening and speaking, grammar and vocabulary. There's a course on literature, which is just lovely. It's got nothing to do with your courses, but it's really, really good for thinking about language. And we've got courses on study skills. So I'll tell you a bit about those courses. That's just a bit about those courses. These are the names of all the courses. There's leaflets here that you can take, and they tell you a bit more about the courses. But they also, if you just go online and you go INSESSIONAL English QMUL, you'll find all the different courses, and each class takes 2 hours in 1 week. You can. You might think, I don't want anything I don't want to do academic writing this semester. So then you can do it next semester instead. You know, they start this semester, there's 10-week courses, and then next semester there's 10-week courses. Okay. So the academic writing one's really, really useful, reading for writing. And then these research workshops, they're for PhD students. We might have dissertation writing ones. So do check the website, because that would be nice as well if you can do that. Okay, dentists, yeah?
Are these courses for free?
Yes, all of the courses are for free, all right? And Stacey's going to talk to you at 3 o'clock. She'll talk to you, she's talking to you about plagiarism, but she's from a different department. And they give one-to-one tuition, and it's all free. And that's why I think you should use it, you know? And even if you think, well, what's literature got to do with gastroenteritis? Gastroenterologist, sorry. Well, no, it's got nothing to do with it. But would you know, there's the QA UN model is all about trying to make a rounded student. So what about pleasure? You know, you could just do it for pleasure. But you can also just do it to improve your academic English. Dentists, you've got a bespoke class for you, which helps write in clinical audits. There's lots of information on the website, and your tutors will tell you about that class. And that's open to all the dentistry postgrads. Global health students, oh, you're going to be so bored of me. When you get your global health induction tomorrow, there's another video of me talking about these classes. But we've got classes to help, because global health, you've got to write a lot. You've got to write these 3,000 word essays very early on. So we do classes on critical reading, taking good notes, planning essays, structuring essays, making arguments, using your sources. So we've got classes for those things. Now, I don't want the others to feel unhappy, because remember that you've got academic writing classes, in-sessional academic writing classes that you can roll on as scientists. And they are, even though they are open to all the university students, they are divided. So they say, well, these are for arts and humanities, these are for science students, and these are for social science, because your needs are different. You know, the way that you write in science is going to be different. Just remembering, you can enrol from the 26th. The classes start on the 3rd of October. You can enrol for both terms if you like. You can enrol just for January. But when you do enrol, it's through MySys. And something that happens sometimes that's very frustrating is that you get these students who get all excited and they enrol, and then they don't show up. And then the classes are full and you can't get in. If that's the case, and you really want to get to a class and it says it's full, and you think this is going to be really useful for me, just go. Okay, just go along. Find out where it is and just go to the class. The teachers as far as I know, all the teachers are we just want to help you, you know, so we're not going to say you're not on the register, so don't go. But that's unofficial, so don't put that on the camera. Okay, don't apply for in-sessional classes until you've got your timetables. Of course, your discipline timetables are the most important thing. And there's lots of, for academic writing, there's loads of classes, so the availability is quite big. As I just said there, the times will be given to you and you can choose based on your faculty. So there's a science writing one. Okay, that's what it looks like when you go on MySys. And there we go, that's the Language Centre website. There's also self-access. If any of you are worried about your grammar or your expression, it's not amazing, the self-access, but Academic English Online is quite good. There's some really nice linguistic exercises here for academic writing. So it talks about things like hedging, which is, instead of saying this study shows, you might say the study indicates. And these kind of verbs are so important for being precise and exact. So there's quite a lot of nice self-study stuff, language-based stuff on here. If anyone's a bit worried about their speaking, there's one or two quite nice things here about seminar skills, you know, just language for talking in seminars. A few good grammar things. Actually, the grammar's got some grammar games in it that are quite nice. So this is useful as well. Again, unofficially, I would say Sussex University Academic English, they have great stuff on writing, critical writing. So Sussex University, do look at their things. It's all free access as well. And Reading University as well. Ours are very much about particular linguistic areas, and theirs are looking at deeper things like argument and structure, which is so important. Okay, so we've seen the classes, we've seen self-access. These are those videos that I kind of get the sound to work, so, but it doesn't really matter. If you are interested, you know, sometimes you just come somewhere and you're thinking, what are other students saying about this? The students I talk to, I interviewed 10 students coming from different countries, China, Italy, Pakistan, I had India, Nigeria. So there were students where their first language was English, but they were still having problems with adjusting to UK study. So these are some of the areas. You don't have to watch them all, and if you don't want to watch them, there's transcripts. But I think it's quite useful because these things are quite invisible sometimes. Teaching methods, which is what I was talking about, this idea that your teachers are not expecting to teach you, they're expecting to collaborate with you. The relationship with your tutors, plagiarism is a very interesting one. A couple of students talk about how they got really poor marks because they were told they'd plagiarised, and that isn't plagiarism in their country. So Stacey's going to talk to you about that, but just plagiarism is a very culturally specific term, if you know what I mean. And in the UK, it's really like, that's plagiarism. We call lots of things plagiarism that you might not call plagiarism. So I don't want to scare you, but maybe watch the video because it's quite useful. And this one's lovely, help and support. This girl, I think she was called Debra, gives some really good advice for the dentists. She says that your tutors are very lovely.